the YTL Foundation has mounted an incredible countrywide response in partnership with the Malaysian government to assist with online learning. Can you start by giving us an overview of what was involved from the start of the pandemic onwards?
Yes. As you said, we are an education foundation and have been working with schools for years. So we understood, the processes within schools. And we knew that the sudden school closure that was announced in mid-March last year would catch them unprepared. The first thing was that online learning was an obvious solution, but we kind of knew that, many schools were not ready for this. It was just too quick and too sudden. And so our first concern was to just keep the students connected and keep the learning going, because, once you take kids out of school and you stop that learning, it's really hard to recover. And, sadly, today we're facing that situation in many parts of the world. So our first concern was that, and then, to support parents, because now everyone would be locked at home and parents would have to take over and be that teacher at home if the kids couldn't be connected to school. So,
and what sort of things did that involve? I mean, was that literally getting, laptops and devices out to kids and so on?
Yeah, so we just had to kind of think of, the fastest solution available to us, right? And so we're really lucky that in the YTL group, we have a telecommunications company. And so we turned to them, first of all, because connectivity was key here to us and getting it out quickly. So we said, can you procure smartphones for us and can you provide data? And, luckily they could. And, it wasn't laptops because that was going to take too long and we just needed a quick solution. And then once they said, yes, we can do that for you, we knew that that was not the complete solution, right? Just getting devices, getting data. What about the learning content? And there's a lot of free content. We know on the internet, if you were a savvy parent and you knew how to Google and find the content's fine. But we were concerned about vulnerable families. And these were families we thought would not have the ability to kind of find the best content. And even if they found content, it just might not be relevant, because in Malaysia, the schools are teaching in Malay, so they would have to have the resources in Malay, and they would have to have resources that fitted the Malaysian curriculum. So again, we called on another of the YTL group companies. It's Frog Asia. They had an edtech platform. And then our long-term partners, Teach for Malaysia. We love Teach for Malaysia. We've been supporting them since they were set up. And we thought, if we could find tech-savvy teachers to create lessons for an online platform, where else could we find them except for Teach for Malaysia? So very quickly, they agreed, they came on board, and we created lessons in the core subjects, English, science, and maths. And it was from year 1 to year 11. And this was to cover that period when we thought kids would be out of school. And at that time, we were just looking at 2 months. I mean, we didn't know it was going to go on for so long. Yeah.
And how closely did you work with the government on this?
At that time, not really, because, we just jumped in and we saw this gap and we knew we had to fill it quickly. So we just went in and did what we could with the resources that we had. The government at the time, the Ministry of Education, was busy trying to solve its own problems, but more on the school side of things, how to get schools prepared, how to get teachers, trained with the right mentality to do this. And we thought, okay, if government was dealing with the school side, we would take care of what was in homes and, trying to support the students and the parents when they were at home. So that was, right at the beginning. Through this process, we managed to give out 100,000 phones and 450,000 SIM cards. And how we kind of gauged ourselves, are we really reaching the right people? And, we had these applications, we set up an application process, and applications were flooding in from everywhere. And every day the team had to sort out thousands of them. And then once in a while, someone would say something funny has come up. People are taking advantage of this. There's an address that says it's behind the mosque. Now, behind the mosque doesn't seem to be a valid address, but when you Google the village and behind the mosque, it actually says it's a valid address, or kind of on top of the fire station. And so we knew, I think these were the people who really needed it. And then one day, one member of the team circulated this photograph from this application from a mother in a fishing village in Labuan in East Malaysia. And it was a photograph of 3 little children holding up their father's death certificate. And it was just so heartbreaking to see this. And we just thought, okay, I think we're doing the right thing. You know, we just have to carry on. And so 100,000 phones later, which we did towards the beginning of this year, we thought that's really just the tip of the iceberg, isn't it? I mean, there's just a lot more to do. And we knew we couldn't do it alone. We're a private organization. And the only way we could amplify our impact was to bring in government. And so we went to the government and we said, can we partner with you? Can we co-fund a bigger program and get more of these devices out there to keep the kids connected? And I think the other thing that started worrying us was it's not just the education, but the mental health of the children. They were being disconnected from school, from their teachers.
So I mean, I'm very interested in that. So the government responded positively. Do you think this will have led to a kind of shift in relationships between the government and charitable organisations like yourselves?
I think government has been experimenting anyway. I mean, what they had done was they had approached the government sovereign fund, which has its own charitable foundation. And they were trying to use that vehicle as a vehicle to fund grants to people who needed it. But it wasn't really filtering out to, you know, all the private philanthropists and the foundations. And so I think they made a good start there to think of using, you know, rather than just using government, but using a kind of quasi-government or government-linked organization. And so, you know, being able to then talk to them and say, well, you've got that other program. And I think that program also included getting GLCs and their foundations to fund about 150,000 laptops. So they had that running. And we said, you know, let's try to do a bigger program with you. And so they then said, okay, fine. We were just about to launch a subsidy program to keep the bottom 40 of the population connected. And, you know, it was a subsidy for their phone plans or if they wanted to buy a device. So they said, why don't we work together on that? And you can use that subsidy into a telco. And so, of course, we had our own telco, which is YTL Communications. And, you know, with that, you could roll out this program. And so we worked out a scheme with YTL Communications where we could use the $70 subsidy that the government was giving, and we could then give out a free phone, and we could give out 30 gigabytes of data a month for a year. So, you know, it would cover them for a year. I think 30 gigabytes is, you know, really adequate for education. Yeah. And I think that the big thing, though, for me is that we also embedded an app in the phones that would give them the learning content that we had developed. So they would have the learning content. I think we have about 1,200 lessons at the moment in there, plus quizzes. And so it was kind of a complete solution.
Right. Kathleen, that's a fantastic story. And I think, you know, what's interesting is actually everything you're talking about is about partnership, isn't it? It's about partnership with as many people as possible, including government. I'm going to